Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to Monday, February 8th meeting of the Nevada Senate Judiciary Committee. We have two bills to hear today and a little bit of housekeeping to do. We have a number of senators present. I will have the secretary call the roll.
Vice Chair Cannizzaro.
I understand that she'll be joining us later, and I will ask the committee secretary to mark her present when she is here. I'll also make a note of it for our record in posterity when she gets here.
Okay, thank you. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Harris. Senator Settlemyre. Senator Hansen.
I also understand he will.
Here.
Senator Pickard.
There is a message for you.
Here.
Senator Scheibel.
Here. And I see we have staff with us. Mr. Guinan, if you could please let the secretary know who's here with the Legislative Council Bureau.
Thanks, Chair Scheibel. Pat Guinan for the record. Obviously, I'm here, and so is our legal counsel, Nick Anthony. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I do see a hand up. I'm not sure if that's intentional. It is intentional.
It is intentional.
Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Quick question on the rules. You and I went over it briefly on the floor. I just want to clarify. If I call you Madam Chair rather than just Chair, I'm not violating any rules. You were just clear. Like you made it actually simpler so that if in fact we fail to say Madam, we don't get in trouble.
Exactly.
On the rules?
Yes.
That's all I want to make sure. So I call you Madam Chair, you're okay with that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I believe we are ready to move into our first bill hearing of the day. We will be hearing SB 19 from our friends at the Department of Public Safety. It's my understanding that Ms. Mindy McKay and Erica Souza Yamas are both here to present the bill. And I will open the hearing now if I didn't already say that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, good afternoon. For the record, I'm Mindy McKay, and I'm the Division Administrator with the Records, Communications, and Compliance Division within the Department of Public Safety, and we are here today to introduce two of our bills, Senate Bill 19 and Senate Bill 31. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erica Souza Yamas, and she's going to take over from here.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Erica Souza Yamas, and I'm the Records Bureau Chief with the Department of Public Safety, Records, Communications, and Compliance Division. And I'm here today to introduce Senate Bill 19 to the committee. The Records, Communications, and Compliance Division houses the central repository for Nevada records of criminal history, which maintains statewide records of Nevada arrests and dispositions, and is also responsible for processing fingerprint-based background checks for licensing, employment, and volunteer purposes, which have legislative and federal authority. Section 1 of this bill is proposed in an effort to ensure the continuation of fingerprint-based background checks on individuals working and/or volunteering to work with our state's most vulnerable populations, which is children, the elderly, and individuals with disabilities. Currently, these background checks are being conducted under the National Child Protection Act Volunteers for Children Act, also known as the NCPA-VCA federal authority. Up until 2019, the FBI allowed states to utilize the federal authority in the absence of a state statutory authority. In January 2019, the FBI issued a notification to all states regarding amendments to the NCPA-VCA, which now requires states to have a state statute that authorizes the national background checks of covered individuals to continue utilizing the NCPA-VCA authority. The Records, Communications, and Compliance Division currently has 333 active accounts that utilize the NCPA-VCA. In 2019, the division received 13,256 NCPA-VCA fingerprint submissions, And in 2020, we received 8,821. Should Nevada lose its authority to conduct national background checks utilizing the NCPA VCA due to lack of state statutory authority, those account holders would be adversely impacted as our office would be required to close the accounts, thus placing our vulnerable populations at risk. The Records, Communications, and Compliance Division anticipates the impact to the affected entities to be minimal, if not non-existent, but we will work closely with the account holders should any changes be required on their end. Therefore, this bill draft request seeks to enact state statutory authority to allow Nevada to continue to utilize the NCPA VCA pursuant to Public Law 103-209. With that, I request the committee support for Senate Bill 19, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. I would like to also note that we do have an amendment coming forth to amend some of the language in this bill.
Thank you. It looks like Senator Hansen has a question.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question. Why is this a 2/3 bill? I guess this question is for legal, really, not for Mindy. Does that make? I don't see any tax in it or anything. I'm just kind of curious why it's listed as a 2/3 bill.
Chair Scheibel, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Senator Hansen, I note that there is a fee added in, looks like paragraph 3 of section 1, and that may be the offending provision.
I'll bet you're right. I wonder if Nicholas Anthony, is that your take too? Is he still there?
Yes, Senator, this is Nick Anthony from LCB for the record. Senator Harris is absolutely correct on page 3 of the bill. Subsection 3 of section 1 of the bill adds a reasonable fee for the background check, so thus the 2/3.
Boy, Nick, you better step it up or Senator Harris is going to be replacing you here pretty quick. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Sure. And I appreciate both of you weighing in on that. It looks like we have another question from Senator Pickard. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am just interested in, it looks like we are shifting from a database that shows convictions to a database that shows every kind of interaction with law enforcement or a TPO. So arrests and citations and all of those things are going to be added to the criminal history database. And then anyone who has an account with the repository will have access to that. Is that correct?
Erica Suzuyamas for the record. Can you please clarify, are you referring to Senate Bill 31?
No, I'm looking at 19 and going back to the digest, and maybe the digest is incorrect, but this is where I picked it up. It says that existing law authorizes a state to establish a repository, and it says to determine whether the certain persons have been convicted of a crime that bears on the person's fitness. And then further down, starting in at line 10 on page 1, it talks about qualified entity to obtain information relating to the criminal history of employees. And then moving on to the next page, starting at line 15, it says the bill will require, the bill requires a qualified entity to, and then it goes through the list of things that are submitted to the repository, and it includes let's see. Oh, I beg your pardon. Maybe I'm just blending the two in my head. Okay, let me rephrase the question this way. Is there anything in this bill that requires the repository to take the records regarding anything other than convictions.
Erica Susie Yamas for the record. This bill, we're already conducting background checks under this federal authority. So nothing that we provide or receive from the authorized entities will change with the passage if this bill should pass.
Okay, then can you just outline quickly again the purpose of this bill, who's it benefiting, and what kind of impact this will have on the department?
Absolutely. Sorry about that. Erica Susie Yamas for the record. So today we have 333 accounts that we have open that we currently conduct these backgrounds under for the NCPA VCA authority. In the last 2 years, we have, in 2019, we processed approximately 13,000 fingerprint background checks for this specific authority. And in 2020, we received and processed over 8,000. If we should lose the authority to process fingerprints or submit fingerprints to the FBI under the NCPA VCA, we would be required to close all of those accounts and not be able to conduct any of those backgrounds anymore. And I believe part of your question was the impacted population. So these backgrounds we currently conduct are for the most vulnerable populations, which is children, the elderly, and individuals with disabilities.
Okay, and is there any threat of losing that authority?
Erica Susie Yamas for the record, yes. If we don't pass this state statute, the FBI would not allow us to submit under this authority any longer.
Very good. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if our esteemed secretary would please mark Senator Settlemyer present. I noticed that he has joined us and he also has a question. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for not being here right on time. I was having a problem getting my Zoom connection correct. My question was, who currently has been paying this fee? And since we're talking about the vulnerable, and you keep saying that it primarily benefits, the elderly and children of that nature, have they not been paying it? And now we're going to require people that are vulnerable, elderly and seniors and children and so forth to pay this fee? Or how is it being paid for currently versus how the bill will change it?
Erica Susie Yamas for the record. So currently we are charging our state and FBI background fee for these background checks. So this wouldn't be a new fee imposed on this population. I'm not sure who pays. There may be a combination of the authorized entity, so the employer that pays the backgrounds, or the applicants that may pay.
Thank you. If I could follow up, Madam Chair, I guess then if Mr. Anthony could, I guess I'm confused then. If somebody could, like Mr. Anthony or somebody could look up and get to me, if we don't change, if you're saying they're already paying it, then why do we need to add more authority within this bill? Then why is it here? And if not, then who's it changing for? No offense, I don't want to vote for a bill that now says a bunch of senior citizens have to pay this fee when maybe it's right that the state pick it up if it's doing the good things to help good people.
Madam Chair, Nick Anthony for the record, if you'd like. I believe what the division has indicated is that under current practice, they're currently collecting a fee that's already authorized under NRS 179, Chapter 179. What this bill is doing is further codifying that authority pursuant to a directive under federal law. So in essence, it's not necessarily a brand new out of nowhere fee, but just codifying what's currently exists in practice, which is either, as Ms. Suzayama stated, either the applicant paying the fee or the employer paying the fee for the background check.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Anthony.
All right, I do not see any other questions. Does anybody else have questions for the presenters here? Seeing none, thank you very much for that information. We will now open testimony in support of SB 19.
Chair. To testify in support of SB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you are testifying in support of SB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 528, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now. The caller with the last 3 digits of 528, please press star 6 to unmute. You will have 2 minutes to give testimony. You may begin now.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I'm the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. I'm testifying in support of this bill, SB 19. The state needs to continue to have the authority to reach out and get the information for these background checks. It is critically important that we make sure that people who take care of, are responsible, or provide services both for children and seniors, older adults who may be frail and vulnerable, need to be protected, and we need to make sure that the people who are taking care of them are pass these background checks and it's safe and secure. I think we heard that most likely these are the same fees that have been going on for a while. It's just giving the state the authorization to continue doing that. So again, on behalf of AARP Nevada and our members, our 344,000 members across the state, we support SB 19 and urge this committee to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 080. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes to give your testimony. You may begin now.
Hi, my name is Jim Hoffman, Hoffman. I represent Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. We support this bill. Witness is basically doing what we already do, except from our perspective, it has slightly more procedural protection, which is good. But I wanted to raise a question that we would like some clarification on. Last session, the legislature passed the Ban the Box bill, which doesn't quite ban the box, but requires employers to go through the normal employment process and then make a background check. Our concern is that we don't want this bill to change that. And so I don't know if someone, the sponsor, someone could give clarification as to that point. But otherwise, we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Chair, there are no more callers in the queue in support of SB 19 at this time.
All right, then we will move to testimony in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition of SB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition of SB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 900, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes to give testimony. You may begin now.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Watkins on behalf of the Nevada Justice Association, and our position is in opposition of SB 19 on the basis of Section 8 of the bill on page 6, which provides for immunity from damages for failing to obtain any information related to the records of criminal history. When protecting our most vulnerable populations, children and the elderly, if the taxpayers are creating a depository of information that is required to be accessed, then that information must be accessed and used to protect those individuals. if there is immunity from accessing that information, then it disincentivizes the qualified entities from doing so. Language in this provision, I think, could be altered fairly easily to make it, to meet its mark. That would be to provide a limitation of damages solely arising out of the accuracy of the information included or admitted from the records. Thereby, if the information in the depository is incorrect, the qualified entity is not held liable for those damages, which they should not be. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Chair, at this time, there are no more callers in opposition on SB 19.
All right, then. We will open up testimony in the neutral position on SB 19.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on SB 19, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in neutral on SB 19, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, at this time, there are no callers to give neutral testimony on SB 19.
All right, thank you so much. I will note for our presenters that we did have 2 questions come up during the testimony. One about the interaction between this bill and the so-called ban the box bill from last session, as well as an objection to Section 8, page 6 on the immunity provisions. I'm not going to put you on the spot to respond to those right now, unless you'd like to, but would just advise you that we will, I will be asking for some follow-up on that before we schedule a work session. And I see you nodding your head, so I'll take that as an affirmative.
Yes.
And yes, I think that was Miss Susie Yamas. All right. In that case, we will be closing the hearing on SB 19. We will be opening the hearing on SB 31 right now, which will also be presented to us by Mindy McKay and Erica Souza-Yamas.
Great. All right. Erica Souza-Yamas again for the record, and I'm the Records Bureau Chief for the Department of Public Safety Records Communications and Compliance Division. The Records Communications and Compliance Division houses a central repository for Nevada records of criminal history pursuant to NRS 179A-075, which maintains statewide records of Nevada arrests and dispositions and is also responsible for administering the state's Uniform Crime Reporting Program and conducting name-based background checks pursuant to NRS 179A-103. Section 1 of this bill amends the definition of a record of criminal history under NRS 179A-070 by replacing district attorney with prosecuting attorney to ensure that the central repository receives charging decisions from all prosecuting offices across the state, which will include not only district attorneys, but city attorneys, as well as the Office of the Attorney General. This will ensure we receive all information pertaining to a criminal arrest to meet our mission of having complete and accurate criminal history records. Complete and accurate criminal history records are critical to making multiple civil and criminal determinations such as employment, licensing, firearms transfers, charging, and court decisions. Section 2 of this bill pertains to the division's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, which we refer to as UCR. Section 2 amends subsection 8G of NRS 179A-075. Currently, this section requires the division to prepare and post on the Central Repository's public website an annual report containing statistical data relating to crime. The amendment proposes to provide an electronic means to access the data on the Central Repository's public website. Currently, repository staff spend months preparing the annual report for publication. The repository has recently implemented the theme-oriented public site, which we refer to as TOPS. This website allows any member of the public to search for any particular data relating to crime for which the Central Repository collects. Information on the TOPS website will be available more timely rather than only once a year with the current annual publication, and will be accessible as soon as the local law enforcement agencies enter the respective data into the statewide system. This will eliminate the need for repository staff to spend months each year preparing the report and will allow more timely access for the public, thus making the Uniform Crime Reporting Program more efficient. Furthermore, Section 2 amends subsection 8H of NRS 179A.075 to provide for the same mechanism of data access as I just described, which pertain to statistical data regarding domestic violence in this state. Section 3 of Senate Bill 31 relates to our civil name check program, which is a name-based background check service that we offer pursuant to 179A.103. This amendment removes subsections 5A and B of that NRS and is a proposed remedy to authorize the division to continue with our current processes. Repealing 5A will allow the authorized participants to receive a full criminal history record to afford them the information needed to make a final determination. Our program offers a research service which allows the authorized participants to request that our staff conduct further research on a record to obtain additional information to make an informed final determination. Repealing 5B removes the requirement of the central repository to provide information which pertains to an incident for which an employee, prospective employee, volunteer, or prospective volunteer is currently within the system of criminal justice, including parole and probation. As a result of a Supreme Court ruling issued in March of 2020, the department's legal counsel advised that the central repository was not authorized to disseminate parole and probation's information under NRS 213-1075. Going back to the Uniform Crime Reporting Program, Section 4 of this bill amends subsection 8A of NRS 179A.350, similar to the amendment sought in Section 2. Currently, the Central Repository compiles an annual written report concerning various temporary and extended orders for protection and provides the report to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau on or before July 1st of each year. As with Section 2 of this bill, these amendments provide for the same mechanism of data access. The data pursuant to this section will be placed on the TOPS website, whereas the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau may access the information at his or her leisure. And finally, Section 5 mirrors Section 4 of this bill. However, the report pertains to statistical data on the abuse, neglect, exploitation, isolation, or abandonment of older persons or vulnerable persons. Currently, the Central Repository compiles an annual written report concerning statistical data for the aforementioned vulnerable population and provides the report to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau on or before July 1st of each year. As with Section 2 of this bill, these amendments provide for the same mechanism of data access. The data pursuant to this section will be placed on the TOPS website, whereas the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau may access the information at his or her leisure. This concludes my presentation, and with that, I request the committee's support for Senate Bill 31, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. I'd like to also add that we would be more than happy to meet with any of you separately to discuss any of our programs to provide additional information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I am remiss in having failed to ask our esteemed secretary to mark Vice Chair and Majority Leader Canizaro here as well. She did join the meeting some time ago, and we appreciate that. So with that, we are open to questions on SB 31. I will start with Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. The current law requires a report once a year by July 1st. While you mentioned that this should make it much more frequent, is there any, do we need to put any kind of check to make sure it's at least once a year? I'm just kind of wondering. I mean, our ability to do things electronically does speed everything up dramatically, but because you had previously an absolute guarantee that by July 1st, you'd have all the statistical stuff prepared. Now we're kind of leaving it totally open-ended. Is there any need perhaps to make sure there's some sort of a specific date to ensure that it's at least once a year?
Erica Susie Yamas for the record. The data on the website, the TOPS website, would be available whenever anybody researching the data would want it. So as opposed currently, the way that we're handling the reports currently, we have to wait 6 months. So there's a 6-month waiting period to gather the information for the previous year. With these proposed amendments, the information would be made immediately, probably within about a month or so after the incidents. Whenever the law enforcement agencies enter them into the system, they'll be made available immediately.
Okay, so bottom line is this is going to improve the accessibility to this kind of stuff. I just was concerned by removing that guaranteed once a year thing that might be leaving a little too much flexibility, and people being what they are, sometimes they push stuff out and then it doesn't get posted. But typically you have, after that 6-month window, a 1 month to 6-week turnaround time. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Generally it takes, Erica Suzuyamas for the record, I apologize. Generally it takes, I think, about 3 to 4 months for us to gather the data as it is currently written. We've just received this new technology and reporting mechanism, and we thought we would take advantage of it and amend the statute. We do have a staff dedicated to the Uniform Crime Reporting Program that monitors the submissions from the criminal justice agencies, and we work very closely with them on a monthly basis, if not daily, to make sure that the information is submitted to us.
Very good. Sounds like a step in the right direction. Thank you, Chair Scheibel.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator Hansen. Next question will come from Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to ask the question on the right bill. So it looks like we're changing the definition of criminal history to include warrants, arrests, citations, detentions, decisions not to prosecute, indictments, charges, and dispositions of charges. And then we make that in the prior bill available to anyone who signs up. And of course, this impacts the question that was raised about ban the box. Is it true then that the participant, the client who logs into the system will now have the ability to make decisions on employment based on arrests, or even the existence of a TPO? I would note that TPOs are decided, and even extended protection orders are decided merely on the standard of satisfaction of the court, rather than even a clear and convincing versus a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And thus we kind of get away from the innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. Not that I'm trying to suggest that we protect the perpetrators, but how does this then square with the ban the box, where we're not supposed to be looking at a mere arrest as basis for not hiring someone?
Erica Suzuyamas for the record. So I do want to make note that we do not provide protection order information in conjunction with our civil applicant background checks. The information we provide today, modifying the definition of a record of criminal history is not going to change the information that we already provide in our background checks today.
All right, so even though you're collecting the information on non-disposition types of entries, those are not disseminated in any reports, is that correct?
Erica Suzuyamas for the record. What we deem them, we call them naked arrests. So any arrests that don't have any disposition information in them, we do release full criminal history for fingerprint-based background checks today. And this bill would align our current practices with the fingerprint-based background checks.
Okay, and then can you explain how this squares with the idea of ban the box, where we don't have that information going to employers so that they don't use a naked arrest as a basis for not hiring someone.
Mindy McKay, for the record, thank you for the question. The previous caller had a question about the same type of thing. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe please provide our answer to Senator Pickard's question along with the answer to the caller's question on the last bill. Is that okay? Is that amenable?
Sure. I think we need to get it on a record, not just an email. I think it needs to be available to the members of the committee and to the public. So maybe if you can provide that in written form and copy the committee secretary so we can get that in the record, I would appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. And my other question was answered, so very good. Thank you, Chair Scheibel.
Absolutely. And we will move to a question from Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question has to do with deleting the requirement on some of these reports of sending them to the director of the Legislative Council Bureau and having them available on the website. I'm assuming that there will be no charge for the public that wants to read those reports, but I just want to make sure that that'll be accessible free of charge.
Erica Suziyamas, for the record, you are correct. There's no fee or no charge for those reports.
Okay, thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Orenshaw. And Senator Settlemyer.
Thank you, Chair. Me, first time around this committee, I was curious, who can see this information? Is this information just for law enforcement, or who can access this information? Anybody, or how does that work?
Erica Suziyamas, for the record. Anybody that conducts civil applicant criminal history background checks with our office can see this information, as well as law enforcement for criminal justice purposes. Criminal justice agencies have access to the information as well.
All right, if I could follow up, Madam Chair. So as an employer, I have the ability to come make that request, or do I have to be of a certain category of employer, i.e. working with senior citizens, something of that nature, or again, it's just a rancher who's employing somebody and I'm suspicious. Do I have the right to come down and make that request?
Erica Suziyamas, for the record. I just want to clarify, I understand what you're referring to. Are you talking about the background check information?
Correct.
Okay. So for civil applicant purposes, it has to be an authorized statute. So the state has to enact a statute that requires or authorizes a fingerprint-based background check through my office and up to the FBI.
Okay, I greatly appreciate that, ma'am. Thank you, Chair, for that information.
Sure, and I don't see any other hands. Does anybody else have questions for our presenters? Not seeing any. Thank you so much. We will conclude the presentation at this point and open up the lines for testimony in support of SB 31.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in support of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, there are no callers in support of SB 31.
All right, thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition to SB 31.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits 080, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Hi, Jim Hoffman, Hoffman, for Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. So NACJ opposes this. I would echo most of the concerns that Senator Pickard raised. I think, one point of the criminal justice system is rehabilitation, right? The idea that people should get out of the criminal life. And one of the best ways to do that is if they can get a job. But people with a record, it's harder for them to get a job. And that's especially true of people who've been arrested multiple times, but maybe haven't been convicted. So I had a client once who was arrested something like 40 or 50 times. He just like angered somebody or something, or he got on some list. He only had one conviction for like a small amount of marijuana, but he was arrested 40 or 50 times. And so think about, you're an employer, you run a background check on this person, it comes up he's been arrested 40 times, you're not going to hire him, right? Never mind that he only did something wrong once, you're going to see 40 arrests and you're just going to, throw out the application. And I think that's an unusually extreme example, but I think that happens a lot. And you may or may not find it surprising that this client was Black. We know that there are racial disparities in who gets arrested. And, people who are arrested, they don't have the courts or the DA as a check, right? Like a prosecutor can look at something and say, oh, this isn't really a case. So someone like my client doesn't get a conviction, but he still has the arrest on his record. And so we specifically oppose Section 3 because we think it would defeat this purpose of rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you have just recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition of SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And caller with the last 3 digits of 611, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Good afternoon, Senators. This is John Piro, Johnpiro, representing the Clark County Public Defender's Office, and we speak in opposition to this bill as well, the main section being Section 3, the same section that Senator Pickard was talking about, that seeks to give all information, not just convictions or active involvement in the criminal justice system. We do believe this section goes against the Ban the Box legislation of 2017, brought by everybody's friend, Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson. And our system that honors the presumption of innocence would be greatly impacted by a change in this magnitude. We believe it goes against the progress we have made in the last 2 sessions and is a tremendous step backwards. Father Gregory Boyle, who's done great work in Los Angeles reforming gang members, has a famous quote where he says, "Nothing cures criminal activity like a good job." And we think that this would prevent and put up a barrier to employment. We spoke with the women at the criminal repository, and we were thankful that they took our call and heard our concerns. Part of the things that they are working on is programming. And in order to do these redactions, it takes computer programming. And far too long, the legislature has left the criminal history repository behind the times on its computer system and its funding. And sometimes the state employees are asked to do so much with so little that they are physically redacting documents themselves. They do need support from this body in order to make sure that something like Section 3 we could do effectively, where we redact things that are not convictions. So at this time, we are in opposition.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 725, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Hello, and thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Shepak, S-H-E-P-A-C-K. I am a Policy and Program Associate with the ACLU of Nevada. We oppose SB 31 for the same reasons stated by the callers before us. We are concerned that individuals who have been arrested but have had prosecuting attorneys choose not to prosecute, will have to explain these criminal charges to an employer and may be denied employment. We do not believe decisions not to prosecute should be part of a criminal record. Through our discussions with the department, we understand that without increased funding and system modernization, providing records to employers or other authorized entities that differentiate between arrest and convictions is extremely difficult and time-consuming. Because of this, we are unable to offer a fix to our concerns with this bill at this time and believe that the sponsor's hands are tied. We urge this body to continue to support the department in its modernization efforts so that they may address the issues raised by this bill. They are currently being asked to do too much with too little. We commend their efforts to work with us, and we hope we can find a fix to this. For now, we are in opposition, and thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 318. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Good afternoon. This is Kendra Birchie, Kendra, Birchie, Bertschy, and I'm with the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. I'm testifying in opposition to this bill. And again, thank you, Chair Scheibel, as well as members of the Judiciary for allowing us to be able to participate remotely. First, I want to thank Ms. McKay and her staff for speaking with us regarding this bill and regarding our concerns. Specifically, we are concerned with the subsection 3, as indicated by Mr. Pirro, as well as Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Shepak. We are very concerned that, unfortunately, we are seeking to amend this section on the basis of a fiscal issue. We believe that there was policy put into place as to why Section 5 required only for reflections of convictions only to be provided by employers. As indicated, employment is extremely important in allowing people to overcome their circumstances, which may have brought them into the criminal justice system in the first place. This would impact not only those whose cases were dismissed due to allegations being false or for unable to prosecute, but also for those that we have allowed to participate in specialty court programs where their conviction, or where at least their arrest would appear until their disposition, where it then potentially could be completed 2 years later. So during that time while we're attempting to allow individuals to rehabilitate and to take advantage of specialty courts, they then have this issue on their record, which may preclude employment. So those are our objections. And again, we really appreciate Ms. McKay and her staff with speaking with us and wish that there was a way that we could provide employers with just the convictions only. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And Chair, at this time, there are no more callers to give opposition to SB 31 at this time.
Thank you so much. We will now open the floor or the line to testimony in the neutral position on SB 31.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in neutral standing on SB 31, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, at this time, there are no callers to give neutral testimony at this time.
All right, thank you so much for all of your assistance and to everybody who joined us today for these hearings, both our presenters as well as everybody who called in to testify. That does conclude our hearing on SB 31. I will now close the hearing and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the introduction of committee BDRs. Today, we do have a committee BDR, and pursuant to Senate Joint Standing Rule 14, committee members must vote to approve the drafting of legislative measures requested by the Senate Committee on Judiciary. Please remember that a vote in favor does not indicate your support for the bill, but merely allows the bill to be drafted. And today I request the committee's approval of one bill draft, which is BDR 14-549, which establishes provisions relating to the administration of justice. All of you received a copy of this BDR via email before this meeting began. I will accept a motion, and I see hands. Oops, Senator Orenshaw.
second that motion, or I make the motion if you need a motion, Chair.
Senator Pickard?
Madam Chair, I did not receive that email, so I'm just trying to figure out what we're looking at. I don't see it in the exhibits either.
Well, it won't be published to the exhibits until we approve it, but all of you received an email from our committee manager at 10:05 this morning. Oh, sorry, that was my email. At 11:03 this morning.
I have no emails at 11:03. Maybe you can send that to me real quick.
Absolutely. And is there anybody else who has not seen a copy of the BDR yet? I don't see any other hands, so we have a motion on the floor from Senator Orenshaw to draft BDR 14-549. Do I have a second?
Second, Senator Cannizzaro.
A second from Senator Cannizzaro. Any discussion on the motion? I am not seeing any hands or hearing anybody to chime in. So at this point, we will go ahead and take a vote on this measure pursuant to the virtual committee, the virtual nature of this committee and the rules set forth by LCB. We are going to do a roll call vote, which I think we would normally do anyway. And I will ask our esteemed secretary to take that vote now.
Vice Chair Cannizzaro,
Yes.
Senator Orenshaw,
Yes.
Senator Harris,
Yes.
Senator Settlemyre,
Nay.
Senator Hansen,
No.
Senator Pickard,
No, I haven't had a chance to read it.
Senator Scheibel.
Yes, at this time, the motion does pass. And that leads us to our last item on today's agenda, public comment. If our wonderful staff at BPS would please open up the lines and let me know if there's anybody here to make public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
All right. In that case, that concludes our meeting of the Senate Judiciary. We will be adjourned until 1 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.